Welcome to our deep dive. You guys sent in some fascinating articles, all from Reuters, and they all focus on Donald Trump's impact, like on the whole world.
It's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, they cover a lot,
Yeah.
like everything, from his influence on the Republican Party to the global economy,
Hmm.
even some pretty surprising connections to the rise of Bitcoin.
Yeah. What's really interesting is how they show how Trump's actions, whether or not he meant to, I guess,
Hmm.
they acted like this catalyst for some major shifts that we're seeing on a global scale, like
Yeah.
with
Like what?
populism, the rise of populism and nationalism.
Yeah, okay, let's break that down a little bit.
Yeah.
So first off, these articles really dive deep into how Trump totally changed, transformed the GOP.
Right.
He moved it away from that traditional focus on low taxes and free trade.
We've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's been this clear shift in the party's ideology. It's almost like they rebranded themselves under this banner of Trumpism.
Yeah, Trumpism.
Which is,
Yeah.
it's interesting to look at these core, tenets of it,
Yeah.
populism,
Mm-hmm.
America first, that strong anti-elitist sentiment.
Yeah.
And they've become so ingrained
Yeah.
in the Republican Party.
It's almost like this Trumpism playbook
Mm-hmm.
is like a model for other leaders around the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Leaders like Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil
Oh, yeah.
and Viktor Orban in Hungary, they've used really similar tactics,
Yeah.
tapping into those same populist feelings, often emphasizing national identity.
Right.
And they present themselves as champions of the common person
Against the elite.
against this perceived elite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like this global trend, wave of populism.
These articles, they point to how Trump's success, whether you agree with, what he did or not, it emboldened other leaders.
To adopt these strategies.
But this also creates a really polarized environment, right?
Yeah.
These articles paint this picture of this division in the U.S.
Right.
that grew under Trump, the strong support from his base, and then the really vocal opposition from his critics.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's not even just,
Yeah.
a difference of opinions. It's this really deep division
Right.
that impacts, how people view everything.
Everything.
From the media to institutions like the courts.
Yeah.
And then you add in those narratives about the deep state and media bias, and it creates this whole environment
Oh, yeah.
where it's really hard
Yeah.
to find some common ground or even just, agree on some basic facts.
And those narratives are
Yeah.
powerful. They really do feed into this distrust of institutions,
Yes.
which is something that's been growing globally, not just in the U.S.
That's right. And that's.
Yeah. It is concerning because a healthy democracy relies on citizens having, faith
Yeah.
in these institutions like the media to provide good information and to hold those in power accountable.
Yeah, so it's not just about Trump, it's about a whole shift in how we view truth and authority.
Exactly.
Right.
And that brings us to another key thing that these articles point out, and that's, Trump's unconventional approach to politics.
Yeah, he definitely did not follow the traditional playbook.
Yeah.
His use of social media, his confrontational rhetoric, those massive rallies.
Right.
It was a totally new style of politics.
Yeah, and it's a style that we've seen being used other places. We see these same tactics from populist leaders all over the world.
Yeah.
And they often are bypassing the traditional media and appealing directly to their base through social media.
And then there was that unprecedented challenge to the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And his criticisms of legal institutions,
Right.
it really makes you wonder what kind of lasting impact is that going to have
Yeah.
on democratic norms
Mm-hmm.
and the peaceful transfer of power.
This is a really important point.
Yeah.
Because these actions raise questions about the future of political discourse and accountability.
Right.
If people lose faith in the systems that are meant to ensure fair elections and the rule of law.
Oh, man.
Yeah, then what happens?
Yeah, what happens?
This is a question we all need to think about, not just, here in the U.S.,
Right.
but around the world.
It makes you think about how fragile, democracy is.
Yeah.
Even in countries where it's been established for so long.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of fragile, we can't we can't forget about the global economic impact
Yeah.
of Trump's presidency. These articles from Reuters point out this really, really interesting paradox.
Oh, yeah. It seems like his protectionist policies and those trade wars should have scared investors.
Oh,
It's like away,
yeah.
but then like we saw the U.S. market like thriving, and then you had things like Bitcoin
Right.
just taking off in popularity. So how do you explain those two things?
It's complicated. I think it points to this complicated,
Yeah.
interplay of short-term gains
Yeah.
and potential long-term risks.
Okay.
In the short term, some investors saw opportunities in a more closed off, like insular
Right.
US economy.
Mhm.
They were betting on Trump's policies to help certain sectors.
Okay.
But, over time, this approach risked creating more geopolitical tension and really strained those relationships with key allies.
So it's kind of a gamble, right?
Yeah.
Prioritizing those like immediate gains, but maybe undermining that global stability in the long run.
That's right.
Yeah.
And these articles show how this created so much uncertainty, especially for countries that really relied on trade with the U.S.
Yeah, they had to adapt
Right.
to this new landscape.
Yeah, to this unpredictable landscape.
They didn't know what was going to happen next.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where that connection to Bitcoin comes in, right?
Yeah.
So these articles suggest that some investors, they saw Bitcoin as like a safe haven
Right.
in the middle of all this uncertainty.
Yeah, it's a fascinating point.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they were looking for stability
Yeah.
and a hedge against those traditional markets.
And they saw it in Bitcoin.
And so in Bitcoin, yeah.
Wow, so Trump's actions, like, they might have inadvertently contributed to the rise of cryptocurrency.
I mean, it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
His policies, his rhetoric, whether he meant to or not,
Right.
they contributed to this feeling of global instability.
Yeah.
And some investors, they flocked to Bitcoin to protect what they had.
Yeah, it shows you how everything is connected.
It really does.
You've got the politics, the economics, even cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
What seems like one little thing
Right.
can have ripple effects all over the world.
Absolutely. And those ripple effects go way beyond just finance and economics,
Wow.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about how Trump's policies, like with trade and tariffs, they created a lot of uncertainty in the global market.
Yeah.
And these Reuters articles, they really get into the specifics about the impact on trade relations,
Yeah.
especially with China.
Yeah, those tariffs that were put on Chinese goods, that was a huge turning point. They set off this trade war
Right.
that, these sources say it's still going on, it's simmering,
Wow.
and we're still dealing with the fallout from it.
Yeah.
Businesses are having to, adjust,
Right.
and supply chains are messed up.
And it's not just the economics, right?
No, not at all.
It's like these strained trade relationships, they have these bigger geopolitical implications.
For sure.
Yeah.
These tensions have strained relationships with key allies.
Oh, yeah.
And it's made it so much harder
Yeah.
to work together on global issues. Like climate change, international security. It's a reminder
Right.
that economic decisions,
Yeah.
they often have these far-reaching political consequences.
It's like that saying, no man is an island.
Right.
Countries,
They're all connected.
they're all connected in so many ways, and actions taken in one place
Yeah.
can totally have this like cascade effect.
It's true.
Yeah.
And the articles, they emphasize how the global landscape has shifted in response to those actions.
It's crazy.
Countries have had to reassess their trade strategies,
Yeah.
their alliances, and it's led to this reshaping of global power.
Speaking of reshaping,
Yeah.
it's kind of amazing how this all goes back to Bitcoin,
It is interesting.
It's like this digital echo of these real world shifts.
It's a fascinating comparison, for sure. While some people saw Bitcoin as a safe haven
Right.
from that economic uncertainty, its rise also shows this broader change in how people view value and trust.
Right.
Just like, people were questioning their faith in traditional systems,
Yeah.
Bitcoin came along as this decentralized alternative.
Right.
It challenged the established financial order.
So like Bitcoin's popularity
Yeah.
could be seen as a symptom
Nope.
of the same forces that led to Trump's rise and this whole global wave of populism.
That's a great observation because they both tap into that that underlying distrust
Right.
towards those traditional authorities
Yeah.
and that desire for alternatives, whether it's in politics or finance.
It makes you wonder, like, what does this mean going forward?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah. We're going to see, like, more challenges to the established order,
Yeah.
both in politics and economics.
It's possible. I mean, as technology changes
Right.
and the world gets more interconnected.
The potential for things to be disrupted just increases.
Right.
You know, we're already seeing this in the way social media has changed, you know, political discussion.
Right.
And then the rise of these digital currencies, they're challenging those traditional financial models.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
You know, it makes you realize that we're going through this huge change right now.
Yeah, it's a time of...
Like a time of uncertainty,
Yeah.
but also opportunity.
Opportunity, exactly.
So we've talked about Trump's impact on trade, the rise of Bitcoin, this whole wave of populism. But there's one thing we haven't like fully looked at yet.
Okay.
And that's the impact on the Republican Party.
Yeah, and that's an important piece because, you know, these Reuters articles, they make it really clear that the GOP is still dealing with Trump's legacy.
Right.
Their future it's still up in the air.
It's like he's cast this shadow. Yeah, he's a big presence.
Over the party, it's hard to say what they'll look like without him.
Right.
But one thing's for sure.
Yeah.
This ideology, you know, what we've been calling Trumpism, it's still really powerful.
Yeah. It's a force.
Within the GOP.
Absolutely. So now the question is...
Now, what is it?
How will they change?
Right.
Will they try to, you know, get away from some of his more controversial things?
Yeah.
Or are they going to, you know, go all in on those things
Right.
to keep those Trump voters happy?
It's a tough spot.
It is.
They got to figure out how to keep those voters,
Yeah.
but also appeal to more people,
That's right.
you know, to win elections.
And that's a challenge for a lot of political parties.
Right.
You know, all around the world.
Right.
How do you keep your base happy and also get those more moderate voters?
Yeah, it's like this delicate dance.
It is.
And nobody knows how it's going to end.
Yeah, the stakes are high.
Yeah.
Because the future of the Republican Party. Right.
Maybe even, you know, American politics.
Yeah.
Depends on how they handle this post-Trump era.
And that takes us back to the bigger picture, the global impact of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
His presidency's over, but his influence
It's still there.
is still felt all over the world.
Yeah. So the question now is,
Yeah.
what did we learn from his time in office?
Yeah.
And how are those lessons going to shape the future of global politics and economics?
We've been looking at like all these ripple effects, you know, from Trump's presidency,
Yeah.
from trade wars to Bitcoin and how it all connects to this global rise of populism. It's a lot to think about.
It is.
So where do we go from here? Like, what does a future even look like shaped by all of this?
Well, these articles from Reuters, you know, they give us some interesting ideas about that.
Okay.
One key takeaway, I think, is that Trump's presidency, it wasn't just this, you know...
Like a one-off thing.
Yeah, like this one-off thing. It was more like a symptom of bigger trends.
Yeah. That we're already changing the world. Like, that growing distrust in institutions, this idea that there are these easy solutions to these really complex problems. And of course, you know, everyone's searching for some economic stability in this world that's changing so fast.
Yeah, and those trends aren't going away.
No, they're not.
They're probably just going to get stronger.
Yeah, and that could mean, you know, more political instability as those trends play out, you know?
It's already happening, right?
It is.
Like, we see this rising political polarization in so many countries.
Yeah.
Not just the U.S. It's like everyone's in their own little bubble.
Yeah, they're echo chambers.
Yeah.
It makes it hard to agree on anything.
Yeah, or solve problems together.
That's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
This polarization makes it really hard to agree and work on these shared challenges.
Yeah.
And like you said, it creates this perfect environment for these populist leaders.
Oh, yeah.
They take advantage of these divisions and they promise easy answers.
A lot of times those answers, they only help one group.
Yeah, they put one group's interests above the needs of, you know, the whole country or even the whole world.
Right. As we talked about, that can really damage democratic norms and institutions.
It can.
Like, we saw how his words and his actions toward the media, the judiciary, it really eroded trust in those institutions.
Right.
And if that keeps happening, like, globally, it could be really bad for democracy.
Yeah, it's something to think about, but it also shows how important it is for people to be active citizens.
What do you mean?
Well, if we want to keep those democratic values, and build a world that's more fair and just, we have to be involved. We have to stay informed.
Right.
And we have to be willing to challenge these trends.
So that means what?
It means, encouraging civil discourse.
Yeah.
Supporting those institutions that protect democratic values and holding our leaders accountable for what they do.
And it means recognizing that there are no easy fixes, right?
Right. There's no magic solution.
We've got to be willing to put in the work.
Yeah, to have those tough conversations, to find some common ground.
Even when it seems impossible.
Even when it seems impossible. It's about, remembering that we're all human and we need to work together to make a better future for everyone.
I like that. That brings us back to you, the listener.
Yeah, to you.
So as we kind of navigate this crazy world,
this complicated world.
Yeah, what's your role going to be?
Yeah, what will you do?
We've explored, Trump's global impact from his influence on trade and finance to the rise of populism and those challenges that democracy is facing. So now what? What do you take away from all of this?
The world's changing. The future's uncertain.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, the choices we make today, they're going to shape the world of tomorrow.
So, as you go forward, stay informed, get involved in your community, and be a force for good.
Be a force for good.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.